Welcome everyone. I'm Qifeng here. It's good that Chris talked just leading into needing science to inform environmental flow policy and e-flow management. So I'm going to introduce you Murray Flood Ecology Project, which is one of the projects funded by Goyder at a very early stage in 2010. And basically, this is capturing the opportunity of flood event in 2010-11 after a protracted drought event to investigate a range of aspects of ecological response in the Lower River Murray. The project is a collaboration between SADI, LA Uni, CSIRO, and Flinders Uni. And as you can see, it involves multiple task leaders is conducting sub-projects under the umbrella of Murray Flood Ecology and involve 38 researchers. So multiple teams are working out there. So river flow is a key driver for ecosystem integrity, and this is the same for floodplain river in the Lower River Murray. River flow, not only in channel, but flooding, it's part of the integral regime of the flow regime. Basically, they shape the riverine structure for habitat, for key ecological processes, and then leading to the change of ecological communities at different trophic levels. So Murray-Darling Basin is a highly regulated system, and Lower Murray is changing to a series of weir pools after this construction of weirs and locks. The graph shows the River Murray flow at SA border and in the last 20 years. So as you can see that during the drought period, that millennium drought period, most of the flow discharge at SA border is less than 10,000 megaliter per day. So mostly it's like entitlement flow. But the model natural flow indicated that even during this drought period, if without regulation, we would have had multiple decent in-channel flow pulses, and also at least about 3 overbank flows in the Lower River Murray. So as you can see, this huge impact and modification to the natural flow regimes would have significant impact to the ecosystem in the Lower Murray. So as Chris mentioned, that a range of management levers has been considered, and popular ones is about introducing environmental water into the river and across the Lower Murray, basically through flow pulses, and also we also have practice about weir pool manipulation, looking at how things could change to improve the river ecology. And floodplain flow regulators is also constructed to see that if environmental regulator could be operated to improve floodplain health. And there's any other solutions, either pumping or range of activities. But all of these is really important that need to be underpinned by rigorous science, and also their monitoring data to inform the management. So Murray Flood Ecology basically captured that unique opportunity in 2010-11, post that significant drought period, to look at ecosystem response and recovery in the Lower River Murray. And bear in mind that this is building on a range of research effort conducted, particularly during the drought period. So it's 10 years work in contrast to post-flood response. So we have conducted 10 on-ground research tasks across abiotic factors and also biotic factors, including primary productions and fish and vegetation. They were led by multiple task leaders, and some of them, they're sitting in the audience. So a range of questions and hypotheses were set up across these 10 research tasks to investigate how the flood affect water quality and nutrient transport, and how these affect fish spawning and recruitment in the main channel, as well as the movement of large body fish like Murray cod, and whether the changing plant and assemblage structure, aquatic macrophytes, is that going to affect the fish assemblage structure in the main channel, and how the wetlands inundation, how do they affect the plants and also fish communities, and whether they recover or how do they respond after the flood, after the long drought period. And also we look at salt leaching and lateral bank recharge and how that affect the groundwater and soil. And another investigation is looking at the red gum health in the floodplain, particularly in the Chala region, and also the understory vegetations, how that responds to flood after a long period of drought. So I'm going to just share with you some key findings across all these multiple tasks. So first one, basically that it's showing that flood is a key driver for the nutrient supplied and through nutrient mobilization from the floodplains in the upstream region. This graph shows nitrogen concentration and as an example, but there are a range of indicators we look at. And increased nutrient led to increased primary productivity as shown by chlorophyll A, that's increased after flow. And also, we found that phytoplankton community structure change. And basically, during the drought period, the plankton community was dominated by cyanobacteria, cyanophyta. And during the rising limb and falling limb of the flood, the community shift to diatom-dominated assemblage, which actually is quite positive to aquatic food web. But meanwhile, also they increase these hydrodynamics, changing this plankton community, reduce the risk of cyanobacteria blooms in the Lower Murray. Also, we found that there are two key floodplain areas, which is Chala region and Burma region. They are key areas responsible for productivities and major stream metabolism activities. So this highlights that the lateral connectivity is really important to facilitate the carbon and nutrient exchange between the floodplain off-channel habitat and the main channel habitat. Regarding fish, we found that increased spawning in golden perch and silver perch, which are two flow queue spawners. And we haven't seen any spawning over the drought period because we couldn't catch any larvae in the Lower River Murray. And through the larval fish assemblage assessment, we found that there's a larval assemblage change. During the drought, it was dominated by small body fish species such as smelt, gudgeons, and also that bonny herring. But during the flood, there's an increase in golden perch, silver perch, and Murray cod larvae and catfish, which actually is quite positive because these species are highly valuable and conservationally important. And the investigation of golden perch, it does show a 5 to 6-fold increase in abundance after the flood event, and there's an increase in catch per unit effort. And we basically analyzed the otolith to age the fish. So this one, transverse section of the otolith show this is a 12-year-old golden perch. So looking at this group of fish, and we found that, a lot of them, they actually spawned during that 2010 flood event. However, there was also a surprise that some mix in this component is 2009 cohort of golden perch. So this is a little bit mismatched with our sort of understanding about golden perch we need in-channel flow pulse and flood to spawn. So Brenton and Pelly look at the hydrographs, and he sort of hypothesized that these golden perch, maybe they're not from the Lower Murray. So using the technique to look at otolith cores using that strontium isotope to identify where are these fish coming from, because they will incorporate the natal origin area signatures into the otolith. So it's really interesting that they found that these fish match signature from Darling River. And looking at the hydrographs, that yes, in the Lower River Murray, the flow is low, but in the Darling, this sort of line is showing that Darling River, actually 2009, there was a floodplain inundation, even with that magnitude of 9,000 megaliter per day. So that implies that golden perch recruitment, actually, the population dynamics is operated in a much larger scale. So spawning in other areas might affect Lower Murray through that larval dispersion and juvenile fish movement. Now, we also found the enhanced Murray cod movement. Basically, Murray cod show a strong site fidelity and favors that flowing habitat in the unbranched systems like Chyla. And during the flood, you still see a lot of movement between Chyla and the main channel habitat, but Murray cod also move upstream and downstreams. However, the tagged Murray cod, it shows 25% fish, they die during that hypoxic event throughout a large scale, about 100 kilometers. So that's the Blackwater event impact. Now, fish assemblage in a main channel and a habitat both change, and it occurs during in the gorge section and floodplain section. So this white bar is basically showing the drought period. What is the relative abundance of these small body fish and mostly large body fish this side. But this gray bar is showing that abundance after flood. So in both gorge and floodplains area, you see a reduction, general reduction in small body fish, and this is likely associated with the loss of submerged macrophytes, because small body fish will need that microhabitat. But there's a huge increase in golden perch and also that carp. It's mostly due to the life history processes, because they increase spawning and recruitment after flood, while habitat-wise, they are more flexible and they are not associated with typical type of microhabitat. Now, in the wetland, after the flood, as you can see that the water body sort of extended hugely and inundated a large area. So you did see a general decline even in small body native fish, but there's a huge increase in common carp, which is an invasive species, and they are a flood opportunistic species, and they will respond to the flood event. So some of the aquatic plant studies in the wetlands below Lock 1 and around the lower lakes, the comparison between the drought and flood period, basically it shows a general pattern about the submerged vegetation extubated around the lower lakes during the drought and with reduced water levels. But after the flood and reinstate of the lower lake levels, the submerged vegetation in the surrounding area, they reestablish. So this demonstrates that resilience of submerged plant community. Emergent plants, they generally maintain across most of the areas during the drought, but after the flood, there's an increase in emergent plant abundance. So that shows the resilience of this assemblage. Terrestrial plants, some of them they recruit after that drought and wetland got dry and lower lake banks, basically they sort of recruit in those areas. But after the flood, inundation, and they extubated, they only remain between Menon and Lock 1 in some very high level elevation areas, and after the flood receded. So we also investigate about the red gum health, and this is NDVI done by Tanya. And it's showing that lateral bank recharge is very important in maintaining the river red gum health. The recharge zone about 30 to 90 meters is really important in maintaining the tree health. And interestingly, that summer irrigation within channel flows, actually it's playing an important role in maintaining the tree survival during the drought period. And river red gum's response was the greatest between 7 to 60 days inundation on the Chala floodplain. Now, a smaller study about floodplain response, study about floodplain response also show that understory vegetation, there's an increased species richness, both in Chala and Pike floodplain. Tree water availability, that was significantly greater after the natural flooding compared to some previous data after artificial watering event and groundwater management. So this is reflected in soil and groundwater refreshing. So in summary, we have done a range of investigations, and these studies basically improve our understanding of flood, how that affect key ecosystem processes and some key ecological components and species, how they respond. And all these basically strengthen our conceptual understanding, which will support in the future about building ecological models or developing management tools. And not only to demonstrate the water benefit, but also these knowledge are critical to inform the environmental water planning and management. So a few key messages. Flooding is an integral part for maintaining the ecological integrity for floodplain rivers. And e-flow management really need to consider about introducing flow variability, so from the within channel flow, and also consider some overbank flows. During the flood, we got a lot of positive response and look at various recoveries in different parts of the ecosystem. But it's not all good news. Some of the risks we actually do need to manage, such as blackwater events and the impact of carp. Environmental water management also need to consider appropriate scale. So it really needs to be concordant with the ecological processes and also about the life history processes of the key biota that you target for. So we shouldn't be just looking at the ridge scale or a small site scale. Not always, yeah. And also that we need to maintain the flow integrity. Delivering flow to facilitate the lateral and longitudinal connectivity across the river systems is really sort of instrumental in maintaining the ecological health and restoring the ecosystems in the Lower Murray. And all these need to be supported by flow ecology knowledge as well as the robust long-term monitoring data. Thank you, everyone.